Welcome to Make It Last, helping you keep your legal ducks in a row and your nest egg secure, with your host, Victor Medina, an estate planning and elder law attorney and certified financial planner.
Everybody, welcome back to Make It Last. I am your host, Victor Medina, and I am happy to be joining you this Saturday morning. I've got a show that I'm really excited about because it's all about teachers, and it's for teachers in retirement, and I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about my family and how many people are involved in the education system over where I'm at. But listen, if you're just joining us for the first time, I want to welcome you to the show. This is a show where we explore a lot about retirement, both from a legal and financial and tax perspectives. I try to go through as much of the knowledge that I have to share with you so you walk away with something educational and actionable when you're done at the end. Now, if you have been listening for a while and you like this show, one of the things you can do to make sure that you're not up so early in the morning listening to it is you can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on an Android device, and you can do that by going to makeitlastradio.com. There are any number of ways that you can subscribe to that, or you can search for Make It Last with Victor Medina on iTunes and hit the subscribe button. You'll know you're at the right page when there's a big blue box saying Make It Last. Hit the subscribe button. Every episode will be delivered automatically to your listening device. So we broadcast these on Saturday mornings, and I'll tell you, about a week and a half ago, I took a trip with my wife away, our first trip in any number of years. We got kids. You know, it's not a practical thing to do to go away as often. And I was really fortunate to have my parents watch the kids. And the reason why we were able to go away kind of in the middle of November is that if you weren't aware, the state of New Jersey basically closes down for the Thursday and Friday in November following Election Day. And it's across the state. Disney calls it Jersey Week. And one of the reasons why it does that is because the Educators Association, the union that represents teachers, has negotiated these 2 days where it holds its annual conference down in Atlantic City as days that are off the schedule on the calendar. And so it's been in there for ever and ever and ever. And it gives us the opportunity, at least as a family, my wife and I, because she works for a school system, to basically get out of town, and we do. And it got me thinking because, you know, so much of my life intersects with the world of education and teachers. My parents divorced and they remarried, so I like to consider myself as having 4 parents. And all 4 of my parents were in education. There's a special ed teacher, a school psychologist, a librarian, and a sociology professor. And each of them were involved in the school system. My sister is a public school teacher in New York City, and she's got a special education certification. My wife is a school psychologist. In fact, for those of you that know me well, you know that my mom introduced me to my wife, which means that she got the seal of approval from the beginning. In any event, my life intersects with school law and with the school system. And one of the more interesting developments is that before I was an estate planning attorney and financial advisor, I had a practice representing public school districts, and so I would be the attorney that would work for the school districts, representing the board, representing the administration. So a lot of intersection with the world of school, public schools specifically. And one of the things I got to do is I got to hold educational seminars for the business administrators for these districts. It was just a role that I had, kind of a little expertise. I helped build buildings and whatnot with them, and it was obviously that was the attorney. I didn't swing a hammer or draw up the plans or find the money, but I helped them in a very small way, being their lawyer. In any event, I got to know the business office and got to know the financial side, and it was a great way of kind of marrying these 2 passions that I had, kind of helping people with finances and making sure those things were in order, and the school law. Well, lo and behold, fast forward, and you know, many of my clients that are on the estate planning and financial planning side are people who were teachers or former teachers. I get them and they get me, and we've been working together for a while. And about 2.5-3 years ago, the New York Times ran an article about a company called TIAA-CREF. And one of the things that they talked about was how TIAA-CREF had been selling a lot of bad products to people within the annuities. And there was an investigation basically in the article that talked about 1 or 2 products that were sold over and over again and the amount of fees that were in there. And usually TIAA-CREF advisors would come in kind of after people were ready to roll their investments out of the 403B. And so they kind of came in after retirement. Well, just recently, a news article came out in the New York Times, and this is right during Jersey Week. It happened in New York, but it happened during the time of Jersey Week. And it addresses some practices by TIAA, or TIA, TIAA-CREF. Now, I kind of want to set the stage for all of this and talk to you, because if you are a teacher who is currently employed and contributing to a 403B, or if you're a retired teacher and you have your money in TIAA, really retired educator anywhere. I mean, I've got clients that are Princeton University employees, and they've got large TIAA accounts. This is going to be an important episode for you. So, as I said, I kind of want to set the stage for you if you don't understand who all these players are. And then in the next segments, I'll kind of talk about what the lawsuit alleges. And then the last segment, I'll talk to you a little bit about what you can do to kind of help protect yourself. Now, for you to understand kind of where we are, let's first start and talk about a retirement kind of account classification called a 403B. Now, 403B is very similar to a 401k in this way. They are both governed by a portion of the code, the IRS code. And it is a way of having tax advantage retirement. So like a 401k, you can make a salary deferral into the plan and not pay any income taxes on it. So you can save the money, not pay any income taxes, and then it grows tax deferred. And then when you take the money out, it's taxed as income. Now, the 403B has had a lot of iterations over the law changes. Now, we kind of think about it as one thing. But in the beginning, it was categorized as a tax-sheltered annuity. Okay. But since 1974, these accounts are no longer restricted to an annuity, and you can participate in things like mutual funds, although a lot of people do have annuities inside of it. The 403B has a plan document that is adopted. While it is governed kind of within the tax code, it does not have to be a qualified plan, which is something that would be governed by ERISA. Now, the reason why that's important is because if you remember my big, long discussion on fiduciary relationships on your retirement account, it doesn't have to apply to a 403B because it's not ERISA governed, and therefore it's not under the Department of Labor. Long story short, one of the bigger organizers of 403Bs is called TIAA. Now, it used to be TIAA-CREF, and what that stood for was the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association, and then the CREF is the College Retirement Equities Fund. It's now just known as TIAA. Okay, it has about $938 billion in assets under management, and it covers over 5 million active and retired employees and over 15,000 institutions. It's headquartered in New York City. Okay, it's got major offices across the country. And here's the most important part before we take a break. Until the year 2010, it was a non-for-profit corporation. Okay, but since 2010, it has shifted its model, and it is now a for-profit financial services corporation. Okay, so it has a long history of working for non-for-profit, and it talks about kind of its history. All right, because it was started in 1918, but right now, it is a for-profit company. So much so that in June of 2016, TIAA-CREF instructed employees to, quote, avoid accidentally implying that you may be acting as a fiduciary and not to, quote, reference the participants' best interests or discuss their non-for-profit heritage. So what it means is from 2017, all of the communications from the TIAA-CREF basically say, treat us like every other financial services company out there, which means we're not responsible for our customers going forward. Now, if that doesn't put a chill in your spine, you're not awake yet this morning. Go get some more coffee. When we come back from the break, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about TIAA-CREF. I'm going to talk to you about the lawsuit that was filed, and I'm going to talk to you about what you can do to protect yourself. So stick with us. We'll be right back with this.
Just about every working American stays focused on the ultimate goal, retirement. But planning for it can come with a lot of uncertainty. Do I have adequate savings? Have I invested enough? Have I invested too much? What's the right thing to do? If you're one of the millions of Americans asking these questions, let financial expert Victor Medina help you make sense of it all. Victor is a certified financial planner and retirement income specialist who can help you set the strategy with a unique planning process that centers on you. By taking an in-depth look at your retirement timeline, goals you want to achieve, and what you have saved, Victor and his staff can help you figure out how to get the most out of retirement. Retirement is the biggest financial decision you will make. Putting the right plan in place and sticking to it is the smartest decision anyone can ever make. To learn more, visit Private Client Capital Group online at privateclientcapitalgroup.com and start down the path of securing your total wealth today.
Everybody, welcome back to Make It Last. I've got this episode today really focusing on teachers who are retired or who are looking towards retirement, and we're focusing specifically on a company called TIAA-CREF, and we are exploring a new lawsuit that was filed by the New York Attorney General. So it's not a lawsuit yet, but it's subpoenas. It's in the court system. So we just spent the last segment talking briefly about 403Bs and TIAA-CREF and explaining a little bit about it. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about the subpoenas and what they are alleging. And then in the next segment, I'm going to talk to you about what you can do to protect yourself. So look, the world of investment advice is a treacherous place to be because investors are constantly confronting biased advice. And you really don't know unless somebody takes a fiduciary pledge or somehow is governed by a fiduciary obligation the way a lawyer would be, the way a doctor would be. You have no idea if that person's acting in your best interest. And in fact, most of the information is shrouded and protected so that you can't see things like hidden costs and onerous fees and so on and so forth. One of the largest organizations is TIAA, all right, or TIAA. I'm going to do that all this episode. It stands for Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association. And if you look on their website, it calls itself a mission-based organization with a nonprofit heritage. But in 2010, it became a for-profit company. Okay. And until this time, TIA has enjoyed a reputation as a selfless steward of its clients' assets for almost a century. It was started in 1918. Okay. Most of TIA's clients are educators, researchers, public service employees, and most of them are inexperienced with finances. Okay. It's not a financial industry. They don't work in the financial world. And they used to trust. They are used to trusting TIAA. The fact that people love TIA is not an overstatement. Okay. But now their image of this benevolent provider of investment advice is in question because several legal filings, including a lawsuit by TIAA employees with money under the company's management and a whistleblower complaint by a number of former workers, says that it pushes products onto customers that don't add value and may not be suitable but generate higher fees. And that would absolutely violate a legal standard of treating somebody with a fiduciary eye. Just it can't happen. It absolutely cannot happen. And yet here we are. TIAA has 855 financial advisors. And while its consultants do not receive sales commissions, right, their sales personnel are rewarded with bonuses when they steer customers into more expensive in-house products and services. And so the thing about the 403B world, all right, managing this is remember that you are captive. You can't take investments and go out into the general world and just pick out any investment that you want outside of there. You have to pick from the menu of stuff that they have. They have almost $1 trillion of assets under management. They are one of the largest organizations managing people's money. As I said in the last segment, they have almost 5 million clients. 5 million clients. Okay. Now, pushing people in higher investments is the world of large investment brokerage houses. Okay, J.P. Morgan Chase, Morgan Stanley have gotten into trouble with aggressive sales practices, and until recently, TIAA-CREF is seen as a different animal. But these allegations are basically saying that they are steering these people into these more expensive investments that don't add any particular value. Now, there's been a filing with the SEC. Okay, and in that complaint, and this has been reported by the New York Times, it says that TIA has been conducting a fraudulent scheme since 2011 to convert unsuspecting retirement plan clients from low-fee self-managed accounts into TIAA-CREF managed accounts that were more costly. And then advisors were pushed to sell proprietary mutual funds to clients. Remember, in a prior episode, I talked to you about proprietary investment products, and I told you that one of the issues with that is that they control the amount of the expenses that are in there. Okay, and so you can't necessarily control that with a low expense. And the complaint alleges that the more complex a product, the more the employee earned by selling it. Okay, selling it. And then basically the complaint said that anybody that didn't follow that was processed out. So just on November 9th, the New York Times put an article out basically saying that the New York Attorney General has subpoenaed TIAA, seeking documents about its sales process. And the subpoena basically raised questions about their selling techniques. The complaint, it follows on the complaint with the SEC. It basically is this follow-on an investigation. And they're going to disclose this information. But here's the thing. I have personally reviewed accounts for people with investments at TIAA. And I am in no position to tell you whether or not as an organization they're doing anything bad. But in reviewing these clients' accounts, almost to a T, okay, almost to no exclusion. When I review them, I find that they are in inexpensive investments relative to what their choices are. They've been sold variable annuities. They've been sold expensive funds. I look up the funds, and the funds have expense ratios that are way out of whack for what a diversified portfolio should look like. And it's sad. I mean, that's what I'm going to comment on. It's really sad because here are these teachers, these people that are like my family. Okay, these people that are my sister, my parents, my wife, who spoke with somebody that looks like they're representing their best interest because they are there on behalf of the school district. They have those clothes on of legitimacy, and they are being sold bad investment products, things that they have no way of knowing whether or not they're good or bad. So when we come back from this break, I'm upset. I mean, as you can tell, it makes me angry. When we come back from this break, I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the allegations are and how you can protect yourself, what you can do to kind of look at the investments that you're being sold and whether or not they make sense, and then what actions you can take if you're not happy with that. All right, so stick with us. We'll come back from this break talking a little bit more about teachers, retirement, and how to protect yourself. We'll be right back.
As you get older, there are so many decisions to make around your legal, financial, and tax planning needs. Searching for the right people who you can trust and getting them all on the same page can be frustrating and exhausting. Turns out, now there's a better way. Medina Law Group is the only place where you can secure your total wealth with a one-stop shop for your estate, retirement, and tax planning needs. With over 15 years of experience and more financial credentials than you can shake a stick at, Victor Medina and his team offer a way to cover all of your planning needs under one roof. Whether you're concerned about getting your ducks in a row or securing your nest egg or both, Medina Law Group can give you the peace of mind you deserve to make sure you have all the angles covered with best-in-class planning. Call the experienced professionals at Medina Law Group at 609-818-0068 to learn more, including your chance to schedule a free consultation. You can also visit MedinaLawGroup.com to learn more about protecting your assets and the Medina Law Group team. For peace of mind and a solid foundation, contact Medina Law Group today.
Hey everybody, welcome back. So we've been talking about teachers' retirement, specifically exploring a new set of allegations against TIAA, formerly known as TIAA-CREF, which is enjoyed a reputation to date of following of really looking out for their customers. And more recently, the allegations really called that into question. Remember that TIAA basically is this organization that manages about $1 trillion, representing public school teachers, public employees, administrators, professors, so on and so forth. Started in 1918 as a non-for-profit with a grant by the Carnegie Foundation. Basically there to cover teachers that don't have traditional pensions. And until 1997, TIAA remained non-for-profit. After 1997, Congress revoked its tax exemption. But if you look all over their materials, it will say how they had a nonprofit heritage and a mission-based organization. But in the materials that were provided to the New York Times as part of kind of its investigation, we got a couple of things that really make us angry. Some documents that talk about how their advisor should be probing the clients to get them to act on an investment recommendation. So they say the title of one of it is "The Probing Sequence: Making the Clients Feel the Pain." And quote, "If they cry, they buy." All right. So this is stuff that was out in 2012, and really shows about the way it continues on. But, here are ways that you can kind of protect yourself, all right, going forward. If you've got a TIAA-CREF account, if you sat there as part of the people that, just absolutely believed in the company and thought that it could do no wrong, you get a statement. You get a statement every quarter. You get a statement, monthly sometimes. And within that statement, you're going to have your investments in there. You're probably going to have investments that you're going to have some investments basically that are going to be listed as a menu of options. And one of the things you can do is you can go ahead and look at your investment options and try to figure out whether or not your stuff is expensive. So most of the investments that you have some sort of code, because all of these securities have to be registered with the Securities Exchange Commission. And so what you can do is, for instance, enter in the mutual fund code into like Morningstar. Now I have a software program that makes it a little bit easier for me to do that for our clients, and we'll do that regularly. We'll put their investment portfolio in to analyze it, and it will pull this stuff out because the software basically goes out and grabs that public information. But if you go to Morningstar and you put in the ticker symbol, you just do a general search with the ticker symbol, you'll be able to find the expense ratios for that, including things for variable annuities. So with variable annuities, those are securities that are registered as well, and those ones will have their expense fee schedule. As you know, if you've been a listener for any kind of length of time, you know that I absolutely hate variable annuities. I think that they're the worst investment product that was ever created, especially anything sold after the mid-1990s, and there's a whole academic reason why the structure and the chassis of that changed, and why mid-1990s was maybe an okay vehicle, but afterwards it's just not good. And one of those reasons is because the high expense fees that are there. So you can look at mortality and expense ratio. You kind of look all this stuff up and figure out how much the expenses really are to run these. And the expense ratios are really one of those ways that people hide the fees that are generated as revenue for the company. If you look at if you look at the filings for TIAA-CREF, they made $37 billion in revenue. Wait, let's do that one more time. $37 billion in revenue. Okay, and one of the ways how it does that, all right, and by the way, $2 billion in profit. Tell me that this was a non-for-profit organization. Okay, $2 billion in profit. In any event, the high expense ratios that are associated with that are definitely one of the ways that they hide the fees that they are generating for in people's accounts and kind of grab that money that should be yours. So looking at the expense ratios is definitely one way that you can go ahead and look at your investment portfolio and figure out whether or not you're being taken advantage of. The other way you can do that is look at the sales tactics that were being used before you made a product investment. Now, you're not tied to being in an investment unless it's a variable annuity with a surrender charge, and even then, we ought to have a conversation about that. But you're not tied to staying in that. You can allocate to that. So if you remember kind of through the sales tactic, if they were pushing an investment as a way to help you protect your legacy and, feeling pain about whether or not you'd have enough to get in retirement, all of those things that were manipulative, you may have been taken advantage of when it came to what you bought within your account. And so, there are other issues that are related to kind of being a teacher in retirement. You may have a pension that you have to deal with. You have income taxes. Your pension is going to be fixed, and it's not going to increase with the cost of living. You may have a limited period of time of health insurance, and when that runs out, you may need to make sure that either you are eligible for Medicare or that you maintain your eligibility with a proper filing. So lots of stuff to do in retirement beyond the investments. But because this show is really focusing on the investment part, specifically with respect to the newest allegations against TIAA-CREF or TIA, you should be looking at your investment portfolio with them and always examining the expense ratios that are associated with the investments. The investments themselves these days need not be expensive at all. And you might have a question, well, what is expensive? Well, in my practice, staying away from the actual investments themselves, because it's kind of improper to talk about them on the radio. But if you look at a portfolio that we would design, the most expensive portfolio that we have, in other words, it holds all of the asset classes that we think are important, and a number of mutual funds. The highest expense ratio is 0.33%. Okay, so it's about 1/3% annually as charged as the operating expenses for the funds itself, and that's weighted based on the amount. Now, most of the investment portfolios that we have are less expensive than that. Less expensive, but that's the most expensive. And so look, you should use that as a barometer. Use my most expensive portfolio as a barometer of what should be kind of an average and acceptable. If you're seeing 0.5%, if you're seeing, God forbid, over 1% in the investments that you have, you are paying way too much for the investments that you have. And all of that money ends up being profit to the company, sales bonuses to the sales agents that do it, maybe commissions that are being split. There's absolutely no reason to be paying that much in your investments. And this is across the board. By the way, if you just listened to this and you tuned out because it's for teachers, this is the same case in 401ks. This is the same thing in any investment portfolio that you have. But because the TIAA and other organizations like that host 403bs and they're captive, the worst part about that is that until you retire, you really can't make a proper change to move away to an independent advisor that's going to give you the right investment portfolio, help you do your planning, and kind of get on kind of right the ship. Now, for a couple of our clients where we are just their planners, we have given them and analyzed their TIAA-CREF options and given them a portfolio that would be the least expensive and most diversified for what we have. And that's a service that we offer as part of our planning services, even when we're not managing people's accounts. But it does give us an opportunity to put them on the right track, and then eventually when they retire, they kind of move their money over. I haven't had one single client who started in TIAA-CREF keep their money there after we explored what the options were and the comparative options were. And that's across the board for most of the kind of captive retirement accounts that we see. All right, so that's been a lot. Look at your investment portfolio, specifically if you were TIAA-CREF. Look at the expense ratios that are on that, and start to get educated about it. Because unfortunately, the system is not there to protect you. You've got to protect yourself unless you're working with an independent advisor, like somebody with the way that we run things, and that would be the only other option. All right, so that was my rant for the day. I want to thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, specifically this one about teachers, share it with a teacher friend. If you are a teacher, if you know a teacher, if you know somebody that might be in the public school system, absolutely share this episode. You can do that by going to makeitlastradio.com/EP for episode EP. -33. So you can go into the site and you'll search it and it'll talk about teachers there. You can always subscribe by going to iTunes and looking for Make It Last. Hit the subscribe button in every episode, including this one. And all of the other 30 prior episodes that we have published will be available to you. You can listen to them at your leisure, and we have them all available on our website. And if you have any ideas for show notes, things that we can do, go ahead and send them to us to feedback@makeitlastradio.com. Love to hear your comments. If you like the show, go to iTunes and rate it highly, please. 5 stars would be great because it keeps it nice and high on the search results. And that's it. I want to thank you for listening. Again, especially on my rant today. I care a lot about teachers, as you can tell. I mean, it's my family. These are people that are around me. I'm particularly concerned for my sister, who works in New York City and works with an organization that has money in TIAA-CREF, so we've been able to advise her. So I care about this a lot, and I want to see people on the right path. We'll be back with you next Saturday morning, 7:30 a.m. Every Saturday morning at 7:30 a.m. That's been Make It Last. This is the show that helps you keep your legal ducks in a row and your financial nest egg secure. There, I nailed the tagline. I'll see you next Saturday. Bye-bye.
The foregoing content reflects the opinions of Medina Law Group, LLC, and Private Client Capital Group, LLC. and is subject to change at any time without notice. Content provided herein is for informational purposes only and should not be used or construed as investment or legal advice or a recommendation regarding the purchase or sale of any security or to follow any legal strategy. There is no guarantee that the strategies, statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. All investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There's no guarantee that any investment plan or strategy will be successful. We recommend that you consult with a professional dedicated to your needs.